Before we get to this week's waiver wire pickups, I need to apologize in advance. I had such a hard time trying to cut down and figure out who I need to talk about. I'm going to do the best I can, but I got 15 names to cram into this week's video, so I'll try to get through them and make sure I tell you not just who to pick up, but why. As usual, let's start with the offensive side of things. And if you're looking for a boost, well, I really don't know why Jonathan Randa is available in so many leagues, but apparently he is. It always kind of surprises me to see how guys who are so hot are still not being added. In Yahoo, his rostered rate is still under 50%. On ESPN, it's like not even 20%. I mean, come on, do better. All he's done heading into Thursday is hit almost 400, second in the AL in batting average and also second in the AL in doubles, along with a couple of home runs. That's why most nights he's hitting cleanup for the Rays. And despite being a left-handed, I guess you could call him a power bat, he's not sitting against lefties most of the time. And I'll tell you what, this is not a fluke. He is not only a guy who, okay, now entering his prime, he's got a little bit of taste of the majors. He's figuring it out. He is breaking out. But also, this, I think, coincides with the new park because as we have seen with the wind situation there in Tampa's minor league field, Steinbrenner Park, it's benefiting left-handed hitters because the wind tends to blow out a little bit towards right field, and we're seeing that definitely help Tampa's offense. And this will continue to help Aranda. Again, that's not the only reason why he's having success. Again, the batting average, as I mentioned, he is hitting the ball, and he's always been capable of doing this. It just took a little bit of time after hitting in the 230s the last couple of seasons over parts of the season, battling a little bit of injury, trouble here and there. This is it. This is what we always knew he was capable of. So I don't know if he's available in any of your leagues. Apparently, he's available still in way too many leagues, but I think this is legit. Now, Kyle Manzardo is a former Ray who was traded for still inexplicable reasons for Aaron Savali toward the end of last season to Cleveland. He's also a left-handed power bat, but unlike Aranda, he had been picked up and now he's getting dropped in leagues. So you might be wondering, why am I talking about him as an ad? Manzardo got off to a great start. First week of the season, he was crushing home runs, exactly like Aranda. They had him hitting cleanup. He was in there almost every day, sometimes sitting against lefties. Okay, but it looked like he had established himself. And I still think he has, but he has definitely cooled off in a big way over the last few days. He's got 4 homers, 11 RBIs on the season, and did have a great batting average to start out. But as I mentioned, the last 5 games, only 2 hits, no homers, no RBIs. In fact, on Thursday, he's sitting, even though there was a right-handed pitcher going for the Orioles. But as tends to happen with most power hitters, they were going to come and go, right? The production comes in waves, hot, cold. I think he's on, well, maybe getting toward the back end of this slump and he's going to rebound. I still think this is a legitimate hitter, not just for home run power, but I think he can hit for average. And so as he starts to get dropped in some leagues or he's still pretty much widely available, I'm scooping him up. I am going to keep him on the bench. And when I see the power come back, I'm going to start him. I believe in Manzardo, and that's why I want to mention him because some people think it was just a 1-week wonder kind of thing. I don't think so. I do believe that he can come back to what we saw earlier. All right, how about some power from the right side? This is a great time to grab Austin Hayes before anybody else does. He basically wasn't drafted anywhere because right before the season started in spring, got hurt, has been on the IL, so he is just now returning to the lineup. And this is his first time in a Cincinnati lineup. Remember, Hayes was with the Orioles the last several seasons and was a solid but kind of unexciting source of power. We weren't even sure he's going to be an everyday player based on all the parts they have to mix and match. But injuries, inconsistency, there is an opening for a guy like Hayes, who is a veteran power hitter. I loved this situation throughout the offseason. That this could be perfect for Hayes. Finally being in a great park to hit in. Of course, Great American Ballpark. One of the best for home run power. And all he's done now in his first 13 plate appearances is 2 home runs already and 6 RBIs. They already got him hitting cleanup. And, this isn't the best, most consistent offense. But you know what? Hayes is going to be hitting behind Ellie De La Cruz. They've got enough pop in that lineup. I think that he can be a run producer, and we know he's got good enough power. Again, he's already able to hit 20 something home runs throughout the course of his season in Baltimore. I feel he can definitely get up to 25 or even 30 in Cincinnati. I almost don't want to get carried away here because I feel like Hayes, yes, he definitely can produce, but I know the StatCast numbers say he's not an elite hitter, maybe never will be, right? If he was going to have a breakout season, maybe he would have. But this could also be one of those kind of later age breakouts that does tend to happen. This situation, it couldn't be better for him. So I'm sneakily kind of adding Hayes here and there where he's available, which right now is almost everywhere. I guess we'll continue with the power theme here. And, as I apologized earlier, I definitely should apologize to Sean Murphy for not believing. I didn't even think he was worth picking up when he came off the IL. This guy was horrible last season. And again, coming off an injury, a short spring this year, I wasn't going to bother unless it was like a two catcher league. Okay. Then at that point, any warm body with a pulse that can play the catcher position could have some upside. But Sean Murphy has proved me wrong, but being much more valuable than that. 4 homers in his first 6 games, and Murphy is looking more like the 2023 version, which was an all-star. And in fact, I'll admit I was much higher on Drake Baldwin, the upcoming prospect who was playing catcher for the Braves. Now, Baldwin does still have some promise. He's playing DH now with Marcelo Ozuna, kind of temporary sidelined, and he will still see some work at catcher as well. He's not going away. But you know what? Sometimes it's best not to get carried away by the shiny new toy. And remember, Sean Murphy was at one time a high end prospect for the then Oakland A's. And we saw him really develop into his own and become a solid offensive catcher just a couple of years ago. So maybe last year was the fluke, right? Maybe last year can be forgotten. He is apparently healthy now. He's in a good spot. And this Braves offense, as bad as it has been and disappointing once again, you know what? Maybe getting Ronald Acuna back pretty soon will help them. All right, now how about some speed here? All right, let me just start with this. Dylan Moore for the Seattle Mariners. He's fine, right? He's good. He's a good ball player. He's not a great player. He's not going to be a great player. I mean, I think that ship is sinking. He's been there for years. He's 32 years old now. What we've seen is what we're going to get. He wasn't a high-end prospect, a high draft pick. He's kind of a solid all-around player. But he can do a little bit of everything, and that includes playing a little bit of every position. On most platforms, he qualifies at second base, third base, shortstop, and outfield. That in itself gives you some value. But then also, when you look offensively this year, he's doing a little bit of everything. He is hitting for average, got a little bit of power, but also stealing bases. In fact, he just swiped his 4th bag of the season. And with a 2 for 5 game on Thursday, he's got his batting average up to 333 on the year. And that's why the Mariners now have moved him up to the leadoff spot when facing left-handed pitchers. When going against a righty, he'll bat down somewhere like in the 7th spot. But again, even there, he can still get on base and he still stole a base. Now, I do not expect this to keep up, right? And I've been very slow to not only pick up Dylan Moore, but also to recommend him because let's be realistic. This is a career 210 hitter. Last season, he hit 201. The batting average is going to sink, right? But for right now, the guy is hot. He's giving you value. Take advantage, and you can use him as a streamer and a nice kind of Swiss Army knife on your roster when inevitably somebody else gets hurt and you need to plug in a player at that position. Hey, for what it's worth, last year he stole 32 bases despite that horrific batting average, so maybe we see more this year. And let's say you're in a deeper league, maybe even an NL only league. I know some of you like to play in those, as do I. Well, here's a shot you can take on a upcoming player who still has something to prove, and that's Connor Norby for the Marlins. Just making his debut this season because he was sidelined late in the spring, so we don't know what he's going to give us just yet. In his 2025 debut, went 1 for 5 with a pair of strikeouts. Might take some time for him to really get going offensively, but I'll tell you what, the Marlins lately have at least shown some signs of life. And last year, after getting traded from Baltimore to Miami, he was decent, hit 247, 7 home runs, 17 RBIs, and that was across 162 plate appearances. Now, he did actually steal 3 bases, but speed is not something I think you should expect here. He's a little bit more on the slugging side of things for a second baseman. Norby was one of the glut of infielders and outfielders that the Orioles had and had to decide what to do with. Well, Norby was one who they shipped off, and this works to his advantage as far as playing time. Now, obviously, not ideal offensive conditions there, hitting in Marlins Park and being in the Marlins lineup. But hey, this is a young team. They're going to give him a very long leash. I mean, that job is his to keep as long as he's healthy. He seems to be fully recovered from the oblique. You're going to need a little bit of power, and you're in a deeper league. Let's take a chance on Norby. And in those formats where, again, it's hard to find just bats who are getting regular at bats, it doesn't hurt that he qualifies at both second and third base. And I could go on, believe it or not, with the Marlins as far as some pickups. Matt Mervis is a guy I've been very skeptical on because didn't stick with the Cubs. They gave him every opportunity and didn't do anything. Going to Miami, again, not a great situation there, but hey, he is showing the power that made him a monster in the minors. 6 home runs already. Now he is also hitting 275, which will play, but warning sign here is he's got a 40% strikeout rate. And this is one of those sluggers who, as I kind of mentioned with Monsardo, yeah, the cold streak will come. And so he's heating up. He's a great streamer while he's got it going, but I can't advocate for him as a full-fledged pickup unless you're in a very deep league because you know what? As soon as he cools down, I think he's just going to be droppable. I'm a little bit more optimistic on former Marlin Cameron Meisner, who is with the Rays. Again, a lot of the same things I said about Jonathan Aranda earlier apply to him. Benefiting from the ballpark there. He's showing some power. And you know what? He's another guy who is kind of viewed as a quad A player, right? Never quite really did anything at the major league level given opportunities, but now he's taken his opportunity and running with it. We'll see how long it lasts. I hope it does. I did pick up Meisner in a couple of leagues, but again, these are my 15 teamers, like NFBC leagues, deeper leagues. I'm not counting on this, to last. The glass slipper might fall off at any point here, but hey, you're looking for a streamer, a guy who's hot. I never mind adding somebody like Meisner. All right, time for pitchers. Finally, let's actually stay in Miami. Believe it or not. I'm going to mention a couple of players that I'm not going to go deep into because I already talked about them just last week. And in fact, even before that, look, Max Meyer, if he's still out there in your waiver wire, either you're in or you're out at this point. Like you don't believe, then fine, leave him alone and don't ask about him again. But what else do you need to see here? I was in on Meyer before the season started. He's one of my favorite breakout candidates. I talked about him already in the waiver wire. I don't want to go into it all again. I'm in on him. I'm picking him up if he's out there. And only 45% rostered in Yahoo, even less in ESPN. You want him, go get him. Now, I'm not quite as bullish on the veteran Tyler Mahle, who's with the Rangers, but I did advocate for him as a pickup just last week. And so I do pretty much buy what he's dishing out right now, not to that extent. And this guy will eventually have a rough start or two. But look, I think he's legit kind of back end of the rotation arm. And, the ceiling is not nearly as high as a guy like Meyer, but the floor might be higher. So I'm going to go ahead and say if Molly's out there, he's a solid add still. All right, now more pitchers that I've already discussed in the recent past, but not as a waiver wire ad. Chase Dollander was on Beat the Breakout right before he actually got called up. And so let's talk about Chase Dollander. Am I really in on a Colorado's Rocky pitcher who not only has to pitch half his games in Coors Field, but hasn't been great in his first couple of starts? That's clearly a rhetorical question because why else would I be talking about him right now? Yeah, I'm in on Dollander, and I'll tell you why. Despite the fact that right now, sitting at a 5.06 ERA and a 1.22 whip, again, this is just 2 starts, and this is a rookie who is just getting his feet wet in the majors. I'm going to give him a longer leash. The Rockies certainly are. This guy has supreme arm talent. Now, obviously, pitching in Coors Field is not a good thing, but I don't think you necessarily have to plan to sit him every time he's at home. I think it's a little bit more matchup dependent. Dollander has a huge fastball that is very effective, not just velocity, but movement, a cutter and a change that he mixes up here. I think he can succeed, and the command is not really an issue that I'm worried about here. It's really just the park and the fact that, well, he's probably not going to get any wins because the Rockies are officially the worst team in baseball as of right now. But if you're in a league that uses quality starts, I think you have a little bit more interest here. He went 5 innings his very first start, 5 2/3 on his second time out. You know what? He continues to improve. We can continue to see him go a little bit deeper into games and spare that poor bullpen. But most of all, you're looking for help in strikeouts. He'll get you that. Already got 13 in his first 10 plus innings, and he's definitely going to be somebody who can blow hitters away. I know it's going to be a bumpy road here and there. I'm not saying you want to set and forget. Most of these players are out there in the waiver wire aren't that, which is why they're still available. But Dollander has huge upside. I'd be willing to take that risk. And the same thing goes for David Festa, another player I talked about right before he was brought up to Minnesota. I had a feeling, him and maybe Zebby Matthews. But even though Matthews had better numbers in the minors so far, Festa's the one really who is their better prospect, and he was slightly more effective last year. Festa does not have prospect status anymore, but that's a good thing because that means he's got at least some of that experience from last season. It was a little uneven as far as the results last year, but he's got great stuff. Got a 4-pitch mix now that he's added a sinker this offseason, has used it sparingly, or at least he did in his first 2 starts so far. The thing that I don't like what I've seen so far is that, unlike Dollander, he's getting a pretty quick hook, has not gone deep into his first couple of starts. 4.2 his first start, 4.1 his second start. They are limiting his pitches, and I feel like that's almost because the Twins are just afraid that everybody on the roster is going to get hurt now. But look, at some point they're going to extend him a little bit. Now, the Twins aren't a great team either, but you could definitely feel better about his chances of getting wins than as opposed to somebody who's on Colorado. Once he starts getting up to 5 innings at least, which he will, then that will be helpful. He can also strike out batters. And this is a guy who has a little bit higher of a floor compared to a Dollander. You want something a little bit safer, but still with some intriguing upside. I'm talking about Quinn Priester, who you might know now is with the Milwaukee Brewers. Priester's been a total afterthought, really, the last couple of seasons. But remember, this is a former first-round pick for the Pirates, and just did not cut it at the major league level with them. Very high ERA, and they basically give up on him and kind of unceremoniously shipped him off to Boston late last season, who then flipped him unceremoniously this year already, the first week of the season, to Milwaukee because Milwaukee was really that desperate just for healthy arms. But they're also looking to say, hey, let's take a shot on a guy who does have that pedigree, somebody we know could potentially, show something. He has shown something. So in his first 2 starts as a Brewer, they put him right into the rotation, and why not? He's gone exactly 5 innings each time, 4 Ks each time. He's only given up 1 earned run and a total of 7 hits over those 10 innings. Now, unlike the previous 2 pitchers I talked about with Festa and Dollander, that strikeout potential isn't quite there, but Priester has looked pretty good. He's effective, got that control pretty much honed in. It's just we need to see him try to, induce a little bit more swing and miss. We're getting a little deep here, but again, this wouldn't surprise me if he kind of figures it out, and maybe he'll never live up to the potential that he had a few years ago as a high-end prospect. But I think there's more here than what we've seen so far. And you got to give it to Milwaukee. I mean, they sure can't keep their pitchers healthy, but the ones they have, they usually do a pretty good job with them as far as being efficient. All right, but you just want safe and boring. All right, go with David Peterson. David Peterson is usually one of those guys who, when he falls into 2 starts for a week, he's near the top of that streamer list. You can pick him up, get a quality starter too, feel like he's not going to kill you. Well, maybe he's getting a little bit beyond that range now. Someone you should consider just picking up and setting in the back of your rotation. He's been great so far. A 2.70 ERA, 1.38 WHIP. Okay, not great, but that's mainly because of the walk rate. 11.3% so far, which is probably going to stick because, his walk rate is never below league average. So the whip won't be great, right? We can pretty much count on that. And this is why David Peterson is never drafted very high, if at all. But the ERA is solid. We know he can get you wins. He's already got 2 quality starts out of 3 attempts. And I actually like, if you're looking for some help right here, right now, he's scheduled to go against St. Louis on Friday. A great chance for him to improve on his numbers. St. Louis offense has been pretty cold lately, and this is a good chance for Peterson to put together another quality start. And you've been waiting for a closer. Let's end with one. Is Alexi Diaz the closer in Cincinnati? Well, no, not right now, not yet. But I feel like it's just a matter of time, and I mean days, not weeks. Now, Diaz just came off the IL, started the season sidelined because his hamstring was bothering him, and so they put him on the IL. And that was almost a good thing because man, his numbers could not get any worse in the spring. So a lot of people just assumed that even if he came back and was good to go, he wouldn't be the closer because why would you want him in the ninth inning again? And look, he wasn't great last year, I get it, but he was not nearly as bad as people think. I think, when a closer loses his job, people tend to just completely write him off like he's done. Alexi Diaz wasn't that bad last year. His expected batting average allowed was 206. And yeah, the 12.8% walk rate, well, no, you don't want that, especially for a ninth inning guy. But that's the exact same as it was each of the previous 2 years when he was one of the better closers for fantasy. Yeah, he does tend to walk batters, but he still knows how to get them out. And this really is still the same guy. The injury was not serious. I mean, a lot of people just assume Alexi Diaz is done getting saves. I think it's going to be, well, maybe a week, maybe even less. Hey, Emilio Pagan, who's been the closer, just blew a save on Thursday. We could see Diaz in there maybe tomorrow. Things are always changing in the baseball world, and that's why we're always here every day giving you updated advice. And that includes live streams on the weekends and midweek on Wednesday night. So turn on notifications after you subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a thumbs up. Check out the latest video as well so that you know exactly who to keep, who to cut, who to trade.